content creation is hard, especially to maintain it for a long time. That's a lot of work to put into something that you're not super keen on. Key is understand, what do you want? You have to deep dive and be like, what is it that I want? Why do I want that? Who is my audience? Who am I speaking to? How do I like to express myself? What does my voice sound like? And that only comes through trying and exploring.
Even if you learn and fail, it's the art of, okay, this certain edit didn't work, this certain thumbnail didn't work, this is how I improve next time.
My whole messaging was, I want to show younger me that she can go on to do whatever she wants to do. The world is limitless for her. The only way to be rooted in yourself is to practice by building trust with yourself. Sometimes it's also really nice to soundboard off of someone. That allows you to grow, to make the content creation sustainable.
Today's guest needs a little introduction. With over 1.5 million subscribers and a career that started off in spoken word, a law degree that she didn't end up using, and then pivoted towards building one of the most authentic, loyal communities in the UK creator space. I'm sitting down with Taz, click for Taz, and we're getting into the real conversation. Not the highlights, not the surface level stuff, the actual journey of building a creative career from scratch. So this is also linking to the event I'm putting on in July called Why Not You, for those ambitious women looking to start something new, build a personal brand, build a business, or wanting to learn more about finance. So let's get straight into the conversation. I feel like your story is a story that's going to resonate with a lot of women going to Why Not You, you know, going down the traditional route, but then not necessarily knowing what exact path you wanted to get into. So you graduated with a law degree. I'd done my research. And did you start studying law? Did you go straight into content creation? Take us back to that time. What did it look like? Walk us through it.
It feels like another life now. So I'm having to think about how I felt in that time. So this was 10 years ago. So YouTube wasn't really like a career path at that time. So what we were conditioned into us was, if you want to have stability, security, status, then that looked like having a more traditional career path. And that would be, in my case, that's why I went into law. So I graduated with a law degree. I studied law in total for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so started in high school, college, so it was something that I invested a lot of time into. And I thought, before my frontal lobe had developed, I was like, my personal statement said, I've been wanting to study law since I was a child, which is a wild sentence to say when you're 15, 16. So I was very that's what I thought was right. And at that point, you don't know who you are. You're not thinking for yourself. So people are telling you that's the right thing to do. You absorb that and you're like, I'm doing the right thing. And you feel almost good because you believe that's the truth. And then when you start thinking for yourself, and I had graduated, and that's when you really are into the world, you're on your own now. So that's when you really have to, that was probably the first time that I really truly took a moment to be like, okay, what do I want? After I had done all the studying and put in all those hours. And that question really terrified me. When I thought about my future, I was so scared because I was like, I am not happy. I don't think this feels right. Why doesn't it feel right? This is what I've been told is the right thing. And having to and it also felt like everyone around me, my peers, weren't thinking like this. Yeah. So I felt even more not only am I feeling this way, I'm not being validated for feeling this way. And the only person that can kind of give me some sense of being authentic to me was me. I'm the only one that can give that to myself because no one around me is giving it. And that's a very scary, lonely, terrifying place to be. I knew from a young age that I started watching YouTube, I think around 2008. So it was very early. Very early. And I was very exposed to it. And to me, it was honestly, it felt like magic because, especially at that time, especially if you're a person of color, you don't see the only way you would see someone like me in a creative field, especially at that time when I wasn't exposed to that. I came from a more traditional legal world, was in Hollywood, or people who had, how to explain it? People who had networks, people who came from privilege, had those resources, or had been doing creative stuff for a really long time. If you did not have any of those things, which I didn't, it just wasn't, there wasn't even any point in dreaming of it, because it just wasn't ever going to be a thing. And then YouTube came along, and suddenly there was a way for everyday people who are just in their home, they didn't have to leave their environment, could just turn a camera on, and then there's people from the other side of the world that could see them. Like, suddenly my ability to have a voice just went worldwide. And that was such, for someone who felt so trapped and didn't have a voice and didn't know where she could go, it was like, that opened so many doors. And knowing that and watching other YouTubers who would share their story about their journey, how they didn't come from much. At the time, I would watch Casey Neistat religiously every single day. And his story is all about how he was a dishwasher, and then he moved to New York, and then he just grinded, and now he is who he is. And some young me was like, maybe there is a possibility. Maybe there is something more. And I just tapped into that seed, kind of like started. And I think when I graduated, that's when all those thoughts came up, and I was like, maybe there is more, and I just want to try. That's all it was. It was just like, I just want to give myself a chance to just see. And it felt like even saying that felt like it was met with so many blockers. Like, well, YouTube is oversaturated, which was 10 years ago they were saying that.
I was going to say.
No, they were saying that 10 years ago. And they were like, well, it's not going to happen. I also wasn't confident, and I wasn't someone you would think she's going to take off. Like, I wasn't given that vibe. I didn't do anything creative. I studied law. So, like, the odds were very much against me. And the only thing I had on my side was self-belief, which was questionable at the time. But I think I just had this thing of, like, I just want to see. And even admitting that out loud, which I didn't at the time, felt like I was saying too much, just saying that. So it was a lot to overcome just mentally and environmentally before I even started,
So did you have like a time in particular where you were like, okay, this has gone from something I'm doing on the side to I want this as a full-time career?
I think I hoped for, I think for me, I was so unhappy doing what I was doing that I always had that intention in the back of my mind, like, I'm going to give this a real shot in the hopes that it might be something more. In all honesty, I don't even know if I thought big enough to where it is now. Like, I didn't even think, like, at some point, these big creators that I love will be my peers. It just wasn't. They were, like, up here, and I was like, I just would like to try. And I just kept trying, and I didn't necessarily think of the end goal. I was just like, I want to keep doing this. I love this feeling. I just want to keep chasing. It was very much like a chasing feeling. And in my case, one of my videos went viral, and it did I became a full-time creator overnight. So it just whirlwind happened before I can even think about it, I think.
That's interesting you say that about the doing it for passion, because I feel like a lot of people start now knowing the benefits of you're going to get brand deals, you're going to make so much money. But back when you started, I'm sure a lot of the people back then, it was like, I'm doing it because I love it. So have you kind of seen the space change quite a lot
100%.
between passionate people doing it for the love of it to wanting just the brand deals and the money?
Yeah. I don't necessarily know if it's like, maybe that is the reason, but yes, 100%. In fact, I had this experience very recently.
Okay.
It's weird because I think a lot of my content creation I did by myself. I filmed, edited a lot of it for the past 10 years by myself. So I was kind of like in an echo chamber of just me, which was great. I love that, being in my brain all the time. so I kind of didn't step out the bubble and meet other creators in a way, in a deeper way. So I feel almost like I didn't see how the outside world and social media was changing until the past couple of years, where I've been like going to more events, meeting more creators, having these conversations. And so it kind of came, so I think a lot of my mindset is still very old school, if you will. Like, I care about the storytelling, the creativity. I wasn't someone who went in and was like, this is my brand. Like, for a long time, I couldn't tell you what my brand was, other than I like creating content and being, and the whole goal is for me to be the best version of myself. But that was like a very personal goal for me. That wasn't a brand. That wasn't like a course. It wasn't like all these things. It was just like, I want to show younger me that she can go on and do everything she wants to do. Whereas now, when people ask for advice and they hear you have 10 years experience, they're like, one of the things they say is like, oh, I've been doing this for a few months now and nothing's working. And I just feel like, tell me what I need to do for it to do well. And I almost don't know what to say, because I think like the starting part is hard, but I think the thing that makes it work is, I think when I think of the starting part for me, I see as it's a time of exploration and figuring out what you like, why you like it. So when you go into it being like, you have this certain goal and it's not working, you're almost like setting yourself up for failure, because the whole process is like, you're not enjoying it, and you're not trying and exploring it, because that's how you learn, right? Whereas if you have a goal and it's not reached, all you're learning from that is, what's the point? I can't do it. You're missing out on all the growth and the lessons and the magic that's the growth is where you figure out what you like, why didn't this work, what felt right to me. And if you're going with that intention, you might be missing out on all of that. I think maybe a reason for my longevity is because to this day, I'm still so passionate about storytelling. I really enjoy that process. And I feel like if you don't have that, like, one question I always find really interesting is people will come up to me and be like, I want to do YouTube, but I don't know what to talk about. And to me, that was so wild, because I was like, isn't that the whole point? Like, for me, what YouTube was I had all these thoughts and feelings that I wanted to express, and I had no one to talk to about it. And YouTube gave me a platform to have that voice. So for me, it was always about expressing yourself in whatever way, whether that's spoken word poetry, challenge videos, lifestyle, travel, reflections. There's so many things. And this was just a medium and a platform for me to be able to do that. But if you go into it wanting a certain result, like an external thing, like the brand deals and the money is like the byproduct, but it's not the main thing. So I never really understood when people were focused on the byproduct, when I'm like, content creation is hard, especially to maintain it for a long time. That's a lot of work to put into something that you're not super keen on. Because it's like, oh, editing takes so long. I'm like, but that's where the magic happens. Like, in the edit where you tell the story, that's your voice. If you don't, I think maybe I'm just very old school in my mentality, or like more creator focused, that there definitely is. I don't think there's anything wrong with that mentality, because it clearly is a space for it, and that is how it's evolved, and people are doing really well with that mentality. I don't think you necessarily have to be a creator to do well on social media, but I think I lean more on like as a creative and a storyteller. So to me, that feels like a really foreign way to look at it. But to someone else who's more of a strategist and a business person, they will be like, this is what you need to do, this, and this. I just think there's so many different types of people on social media. You can't narrow it down to one. I think the key is understand, what do you want? And if you do want those things and you want to build your business and stuff like that, that's absolutely fine to do, and that's great. But then the answer isn't going to come from someone else. You have to deep dive and be like, what is it that I want? Why do I want that? Who is my audience? Who am I speaking to? How do I like to express myself? What does my voice sound like? And that only comes through trying and exploring.
And I think the difficult thing, especially nowadays with social media, is like, people will see,
oh, I went from 0 to 30,000 followers in a month, this is how you do it. Or I went from 0 to 10K so fast. And they think, okay, if I've started on day one and by 3 months time I'm not at now 50K followers, I failed, I can't do it. But like you said, actually learning, this, even if you learn and fail, it's the art of, okay, this certain edit didn't work, this is how I go about it next time. Or this certain thumbnail didn't work, this is how I improve next time. I've kind of seen, even with my own content starting out, even though, yes, you might be disappointed that it's not got all these thousands of views, but you can then learn, this is how I'm going to improve it for next time. And I feel like people kind of have forgotten the art of good things take time. And it is going to take time. It might be painful, but it is going to take time. And someone who's been in the game for 10 years, it's taken time. So what would you kind of advise for not those starting out, but those who are kind of frustrated that they're not necessarily seeing the numbers they want to see, or they're not where they are, where they want to be?
I think it's more about having a perspective shift, because the truth is a lot of this industry is luck. So yes, maybe for someone else they were able to get 50,000 followers in 30 days, but there's no like, and there are things you can kind of like there are things you can do to increase your surface area of luck. Be consistent, hardworking, have good lighting, good equipment. And by equipment, you can use your phone, but just like a good mic maybe. Those can definitely increase your surface area of luck, but there's no guarantee. So there's no guarantee that it will do well. So first of all, I would like to stress that, like, if you that's putting a lot of pressure on you. I think instead of thinking about it like that, I would recommend that you enjoy the process, because the process never stops. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're not enjoying the process how do I explain? Like, for me, it's so weird, because to me, it sounds like, when you think of it like that, are you even enjoying it?
Yeah.
Like, is this fun for you? Mm-hmm. Like, why? I guess my question to that would be, why are you doing it? If it's just for the followers, I don't know how sustainable that will be, because even when you get the followers, you're going to be like, I need more. I need something else. I need something else. And sometimes it's going to be really hard. Mm-hmm. Even when you say make it, you then have to keep up that momentum. Mm-hmm. And you have to be consistent. You have to do all these things. And if you don't enjoy the doing of it all, the learning, the growing and all that, you're setting yourself up for, I don't know, like, it's just like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, for example, say you worked really hard on a video and you're really proud of that, but it didn't do that well in views. Will you suddenly be like, what was the point? But the point was you enjoyed creating that thing. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to go into like authenticity, people can see when you're doing it because you love it and when you're doing it for views and followers. Mm-hmm. I think now more than ever, the audience are very tapped in and they can see right through that. Mm-hmm. So again, I would answer like, I guess if you're very authentic, like that's the reason you're doing it, then it will work for you. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think I would say it would be about shifting the mindset from views and followers and be asking yourself, do you enjoy the process? Because that's what's going to set you up more in terms of long-term success, I think. Mm-hmm.
And in terms of now kind of going into how exactly, you built your audience and someone would build their audience. I know we've kind of touched on that already, but your audience is very loyal and you've built a brand around being authentic. How would you say you've ensured that you've stayed true to yourself, true to your brand, and not just necessarily, especially with like brand deals and like working with anyone or collabing with anyone? What would you say for you was the importance of staying authentic and having a loyal audience?
Yeah, it's always interesting when you get asked this, of like, how did you stay authentic? Because it's almost like, if you're authentic, you don't do anything, you just are. That's the point. Mm-hmm. Right? So for me, I didn't feel like, how do I stay authentic? I was just documenting what was happening and how I was experiencing it in my life. So you know, my channel at the start grew from spoken word poetry, and it was like really emotional, sad, intense poems about my mental health and how I felt at that time, because that's just how I felt. I didn't know that that was going to do well, but that's just what I felt like I needed to express at that time, because I was going through a lot. So I just shared that. And then at some point, I didn't feel like that anymore. That didn't resonate to the season of life I was in. I was in my, I want to challenge myself, go out of my comfort zone, try new things. So I changed to more challenge-based content that was going to challenge me. And, you know, I did my first solo trip by myself. I did these budget challenge videos. I traveled. I moved to London, moved to my first apartment, figured out how to do that on my own. These were just things that I wanted to do, and that's how I felt I wanted to express myself, so I did that. Now I'm in a very different chapter in my life where I feel like it's gone more towards reflections and self-growth and lifestyle, because that's how I feel right now. And I think, again, it wasn't this like it wasn't a strategic thing.
Yeah.
It was more like, I guess it's more like, if you were to put it into strategy, I never had a niche in terms of, I do travel content, I do educational content, I talk about medicine. If you will, and again, this wasn't planned, this is just me, that's just how I showed up to the world. I guess my niche or my brand was all about, at the starting point when I was doing law, I didn't feel like I was living my authentic self. I felt very trapped. I felt very caged in. I felt like I was trying to live up to society's expectations, and that didn't feel right to me. And I questioned that feeling very early on in my early 20s. And back then, I was questioning, and I showed that all online, like, why am I doing this? Is this really what it's for? And it planted that seed of like, what I really want to do is go on this journey of figuring out who really am I? What am I capable of? What is my potential? And because that was the messaging, I guess that was my brand. And you can do so much within that. And it's quite wide. So even then, because the whole branding was about seeing what the potential was, so many things can fit into that. So when you talk about like, how did I work with brands? How did I work with, it actually came in very seamlessly, because my whole messaging was, I want to show younger me that she can go on to do whatever she wants to do. Like, the world is limitless for her. And I'm going to show that to her by putting myself out there. Like, see these videos as almost like diaries to younger me, to be like, look, you can go off and go on a solo trip. You can get your own first home. You can build your own business. You can do all these things. And you can work with all these brands. And because that was my messaging from day one, like one of the first videos I put on the channel, I didn't have to justify anything, because it was all seeded. Like, it wasn't seeded in one video. It's been seeded in every single video for the past 10 years. And that wasn't because I had this master plan and I knew this was all going to work out for me. In fact, it was kind of a massive risk, because I think it was 2018. I did my first TED Talk, which was a huge thing at the time. I was doing spoken word poetry. And that TED Talk is called, Are You Living the Life You Really Want? So you could tell at that time, I've been questioning this for a really long time. And that was a season where I was like, is this really what I want? I'm not happy. Is this the best it's going to be? And I was basically on stage giving this talk, not as someone who's like figured it out and has all the answers, but as someone saying, look, I've been doing the right thing for so many years now, and I still feel so lost, and I want to give myself the chance to try. Thankfully, it worked out. And now I can be like, guys, I went with my intuition and it worked out. But if it didn't, then that would have been online for the whole world to see, like, it was a huge risk. It was very vulnerable to do that. And I could have come back 8 years later and been like, it didn't work out. But so I was taking a massive risk. And I think that's how and I think because people saw like, oh, she's just being honest. Like, that's how she feels. It kind of like, it's like integrity, right? In order to show integrity, you need the pattern to believe it. And I think because it was from the start, I was like very honest about how I felt. It meant now 10 years later, I don't have to be like, prove myself in that way, because it's kind of been there. That's what I say about when people say how to be authentic. you just are. It shouldn't have to be something you have to strategize. Like, I didn't know it was going to work out. But because I was just honest from the beginning, it's almost like if you're just honest, it will take off all the workload of having a strategy, because you wouldn't have to come up with a strategy because you just are. That's how I felt anyway. There's no way I could have predicted how things could have gone. I still don't know where my life is going. But what I do know is I'll always make the decisions that felt right to me at that time. Being honest at that time felt very scary. It was a huge risk, but it felt right to me. And now, like, moving to London was scary, but it felt right. And now I'm in this other season of life where I'm like trying to build and expand my team and grow. And it's a new learning curve and it's scary, but it feels right. So I think, again, when I talk about my process of it, I wasn't thinking about the end goal or what it looked like. I was thinking about, like, what feels right to me. Like, why am I doing this? And the more honest you can be about yourself, like, at that point, I feel like the easier everything else will be. Even if a video doesn't do well, if I knew, like, that felt real and right to me, it's a lot easier to sit with that, I think.
And so one of the key things you mentioned about, like, being vulnerable and actually sharing your story with mental health, I kind of think when it comes to content, especially when I'm like creating content, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have family watching this, I'm gonna have friends watching this. Like, you were able to show up and be, obviously you talk about the confidence grew as you were making that content, but being vulnerable with those people watching, what was your kind of thought process? Were you just like, you know what, I just want to help anyone who's watching, or I want to speak to my younger self? Because when I kind of think, yes, I want to be vulnerable, yes, I can be authentic, but when it comes to being vulnerable, in the back of my head, even though everyone always preaches don't care about what people think, you are going to think about it sometimes. So how did you kind of overcome that, if you had to deal with that, and what would you kind of recommend or advise to people who were thinking like I'm thinking?
I think the truth is, I'll be honest, when I was, so when I did my first spoken word poem, which was called I Hate Myself, so I was in a very fun mental state at the time. Poetry wasn't a big thing. That wasn't like the way to grow your channel was to do vulnerable content. And I didn't have many subscribers at the time. If I'm being completely honest, that content that I did, every time I've been vulnerable, I did it for me. I think maybe because I've had this conversation with a lot of people, like, where do you get your drive from? How are you so vulnerable? And I almost don't know how to answer, because to me, it came so like, well, that just makes the most sense to do. Like, especially because prior to that, I did everything that was right for other people. And I just saw, like, this wasn't working. I felt so depleted and so low and so depressed. I was like, I'm done with that. Like, I have done that. I tried being everything for everyone else, and I was nothing for me. And I was so unhappy. So in a way, I'll be honest, I was just selfish of like, I'm doing this for me. Like, this is how I actually feel. I don't want to present myself as this like together person, especially when you come from a legal background. You have to look a certain way and and I think that was just me being like, I'm tired and I'm done, and I don't even care. Like, I wasn't doing the poetry, especially when I was the most vulnerable. I wasn't doing that to get viewers and followers, because I didn't even think that was something that could get that. Because I was watching people like Zoella and Casey Nice at the time, and it was very different to the content I was making. It was more like, one thing I struggled with growing up was having a voice. And now I've been given a chance to have a voice. I'm going to take that. I'm going to be as honest as I can. So at least then I can live with myself, you know? And I think it was more about like, I wanted, again, this whole journey, yes, it's been really cool. And yes, I'm so aware that I have an audience. And obviously it goes through a process of editing and storytelling and filming. So you are aware there's an audience watching. But at the root of it, I was like, I want to make stuff and go on this journey that will make younger me proud. And I think younger me felt so trapped that when I show up and I'm authentic, I'm not thinking, so maybe that's what it is. When I'm being vulnerable, I'm not thinking about the audience or anyone else. I'm thinking about younger me. And younger me would have killed to have been able to be honest and accepted. So I'm going to make her feel accepted. Like, your feelings are so valid. Your dreams are so valid. You don't have to change yourself to be accepted, because I'm going to accept you. And I'm going to do that and show that to you by being as authentic as possible. I'm doing this for me. And that's why 10 years later, I'm so like, I don't know, like I'm just like at peace with it all, because I was like, I guess one of the reasons I find it quite hard to ask when people are like, when people are like, oh, how to be authentic. Because to me, it was just so innate. I was just like, that's what I was fighting for. So you know how people were fighting for views or followers? For me, I was fighting to just be me. That's the whole journey, was about being me. And in a way, everything else was just like a byproduct of that. So that's why I find these questions so hard to answer, because my brain is so different. Like, I wasn't thinking about what the brand was, what the strategy was. I was like, I just want to show younger me that she can be her full, cringy, awkward, shy, too much self. And she will be celebrated for that. And in order to do that, I have to show up like that. So I just went for it.
Love that. I love that. So when it comes to the confidence side of things, I know you kind of talk about over time, it took time to kind of build that up and get to where you are now and feeling so, what's the word, self-secure, I suppose. So what did that journey kind of look like from when you started, not just with content, I suppose, but yourself, and how was the content also helped in that journey? And what would you kind of say to, because I know you talk about obviously helping your younger self, but within that you've helped many other women too, that probably look up and think, okay, I want to get to that self-confidence one day. So yeah, what was that journey like for you, and what would you advise for others?
I think, so for a long time I was there's a lot of information about like how to be confident. And again, it's all about quick tips. Like, you know, make eye contact, shoulders, you know, all that body language and stuff. And I don't think I've done any of that today. But for me, what I've learned is confidence comes from self-trust. So again, this links back to authenticity and stuff like that. If you self-abandon yourself, you are going to have low confidence. If you don't keep to your promises, if you don't stay true to you, it's going to be very hard to have that inner confidence where you can go into a room and you're not comparing yourself to people, because you're so rooted in yourself. The only way to be rooted in yourself is to practice that by building trust with yourself. And I think looking back, the way I did that was I kept all my promises to myself. Like, yes, it is scary and cringy and embarrassing to be vulnerable online to so many people, but that's what feels right to me. So I'm going to keep that promise to myself to be authentic, and I'm going to show up regardless of being scared. I want to show myself like I can be confident, like I can travel by myself, I can be independent. Well, then I need to show that. And every time I feel like confidence for me came through doing actions again and again and again, to the point where now traveling solo by myself to the other side of the world is like, I don't even think about it.
I was going to say, I'm literally the same. And I think solo travel is a big one, because even it starts with small steps, because literally I went to Thailand by myself this year and the Philippines, and it all started when I'd done like Camp America by myself when I was 19. And when you can prove to yourself, okay, I can go there by myself, I can go to dinner by myself, I can do this, then you're like, okay, the only people I'm going to let join me are people I genuinely enjoy being around. Else you're like, I can do it by myself. So I definitely get that.
And I would encourage many people, like everyone, I would encourage everyone to, it doesn't even have to be anything big. Like solo travel is quite a big one, and there's so many safety and things like that. But just doing experiences by yourself to build that muscle. I think sometimes people want confidence to be a quick fix, like let me get ready in an hour and then I'll be confident. But that's not like inner confidence. Inner confidence is when you can say how you perceive yourself and who you are is the same. Like I can say I'm someone who follows through on the things that I say to myself. That gives so much more confidence than if I didn't do those things and I just like dressed up really, you know? So I think confidence comes from doing those repeated actions again and again. And I think YouTube is such a great way of building. It's hard. It's really hard because a lot of other people will say, no, being online destroy my confidence, because there is that other aspect of you are putting yourself online and there's a lot of feedback and criticism, and it can also destroy your confidence. But again, that's when I would go back to my why. If your why is on external things like views and followers, then your confidence will be quite fragile, right? As soon as it doesn't work externally, it's gone.
Yeah.
Whereas no one can take away from me how hard I worked and invested into the process. Despite the views not being there, I can still be like, but I'm still someone who shows up. I'm still someone who is independent. I'm still someone who advocates for opening doors and opportunities. So that kind of stuff is less hard to like strip away from you. So I think maybe being online doesn't have to be the way you do it, but in your personal life, if you can just like keep the promises you make to yourself, it will do such wonders for your inner confidence.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. It's all in the small steps, because it builds up over time. Like you said, it's not going to be a quick fix of, oh, I'm going to wear this nice outfit and I'm suddenly going to be okay. No, it's after. I was going to say months, it could be years and years and years. And sometimes even after years and years, you might not be 100%, but you're going to feel better than, or more confident than you were back then. So, yeah, I was going to say, when it comes to the negative side of social media, how did you kind of deal with, I don't know if you went through like a whole, because some creators go through the people turn on them and they have hateful comments and whatnot, but how did you kind of deal with the, what's the word, channeling out the hate and not listening to the negative comments and whatnot? Because I know that gets to a lot of people.
I think I've been quite fortunate in that sense, if I'm being honest. I haven't really, I mean, there might be the odd few, but I would say the majority has been so supportive of the journey. And I think maybe the reason for that is because it has been 10 years. So it's been a slow growth. Whereas if I had just come out of nowhere and in 6 months' time, I was where because now, in a way, you know, when people, you made the example earlier of like, in 30 days, I got 50,000 followers. I wonder, because it's so quick, does it mean that the audience also doesn't see enough of the growth to like really see the journey and give that context? Maybe there's a lot of context that's missing. Whereas for me, you can see the different eras almost, and the different seasons, and you can see like, oh, this wasn't an overnight success. This was like a lot of years in the making. So when I do now go, say, on a brand trip to like the Winter Olympics, and it's like such a crazy lottery opportunity, right? They're not just seen as like, oh, she just got that. They're seen like, it took 10 years for her to get onto this trip. So I think that context probably has helped me a lot, I think, maybe, for the majority. And there'll be some people who will give hate, but for me, it's been quite, it hasn't been an overwhelming amount, fortunately, that it hasn't, like, I'm human and I'm very sensitive. I'm a very sensitive human being. And I value authenticity a lot. So when someone questions, I'm like, wait, but no, but that's when you just take a step back and you focus on like being present in your world. And how do the people in your world, how do they perceive you? And that brings you back to reality of like, okay, this is who I really am.
And I also think for someone to hatefully write a comment on someone that they have never met, or and even if they've met them, sometimes I just have to think like they must be very insecure in themselves and hateful in themselves to have that much hate in their heart to go and do that. But that's a conversation for another day. What would you kind of recommend educational wise for those starting out to kind of know, not just for the financial side, but when starting with their YouTube business? Because I suppose it is your personal brand is your own business. What are the key things they should look out for, or some things you wish you knew when you were getting started that would have been like, okay, that could have saved me a lot of time?
Ooh, okay, this is going to be quite boring, but it's so important. Tax.
It is an important one.
And I say that because at a certain point, you'll get past a threshold and like you have to pay like VAT tax. And if you don't submit yourself and like apply for that, I can't remember what the right word is, you get penalized. So not only is it paying the tax, be aware of like making sure you get your paperwork done, because if not, you will get penalized for it. And there's so many I could tell you about this area of like accounting, but like when I started out, I was so scared of like, I didn't want to get done for fraud or anything like that. So I was like very risk averse. So I was like overly doing that. And at the time, I just like, you got to be careful of like, I'm trying to be careful how I say this. I didn't know how much these kind of services cost. And let's just say I was overcharged.
Oh, really?
For a while, because I didn't know. And I was like, well, I just want to get everything sorted by the book and properly.
See, that's sad, because at least you were trying to do it properly.
Yeah, no,
100%. They took advantage of you, obviously.
So there's like, because at the end of it, you are self-employed.
Yeah.
There isn't someone you go to who does it for you. You have to go out there and find all these things yourself. And especially 10 years ago, there wasn't that kind of knowledge out there. Like when I say it felt like I was one of the first to do it. I really had to learn all these things. And then it was I went to like a YouTube convention where I met lots of creators, and it was only through speaking to them that I realized that, and it was like, no, that's not how much you should be. And then I started going down a more clear path. But there's so much you got, and also like I've heard stories of like, you know, when you have a traditional job, the tax is already taken out, so you just spend what you earn. But obviously for us, we earn the money and then we got to pay tax afterwards. But if you're young and you just come into all of this like money and fame and things like that, you're just like living your best life, spending all that money, because you don't pay tax until like a year later, right?
Yeah, no, literally.
And then the tax bill comes and you're like really confused, like where is all this, you know? So there's so many, like I would say that's more helpful, of like, make sure you sort the money you already have made and make sure that's done well.
You don't
and then we can think about
a bad situation.
because that can really if you get penalized and things like that, that could impact you later on. And I think that's the sort of stuff that no one teaches you. Like when I was in school, they didn't teach us how to start a business, how to do all those things. So there's so many things I had to learn. Bless baby Taj, she had to learn so much. And it was hard.
At least nowadays, because I know like when I started my business, at least I feel like there's more information out there on.
So maybe this is like outdated information. Sorry guys, this is just what I went through 10 years ago.
But you do have to seek it out, because it is, obviously you have finance creators out there, but sometimes if you're not, your algorithm will feed you certain things. I was very like, okay, I knew I wanted to start the business. I knew I had to look at the financial sides as well. So I didn't want to be in that predicament. Hence why I was sorting out that information.
Yeah.
But I suppose if you're not, you don't want to be hit with the tax bill. You don't want to be hit with those brown letters in your post.
Yeah.
So it's good to know about it.
Again, it comes back to intention. I think what we're realizing is, obviously we're talking about my starting journey, how different it is to now. Because like you said, now people go in thinking I'm starting a business, so I need to think like that, and where do I go and find that information? And there is lots of information out there. There's whole channels about it now. Whereas when I started out, I just wanted to make videos, and everything else was a byproduct of that. And then I was like, okay, well, I need to figure out how to do all this stuff. But I didn't go in being like, I want to start a business. I just wanted to make videos. So again, I just think 10 years ago to now, the approach to it is just so different. So you would go about it very differently. I would say have a clear why. I talked about it earlier, because key things. I would say have a clear why you're doing it, and that should be the consistent thread through it all, because sometimes you're going to feel discouraged, or you're going to lose your way, or the passion or the momentum or the motivation won't be as where it was. And the thing that'll keep you going is going to be your why. So it's very helpful if you're very clear on that, because it'll just help you with longevity, I think. And another key thing I would say is try to outsource when you can. I had to learn this the hard way. I tried to do everything by myself. For a good 10 years, I did everything by myself. And it just led to burnout after burnout after burnout. And I think a big reason for that is because I felt a lot of shame of like, you hear this a lot, rhetoric online of like, oh, YouTubers, they don't really, not necessarily YouTubers maybe, but influencers, they don't really work hard. And I guess I extrapolated that to YouTubers because I consider myself more like a content creator than influencer. So then I felt this need that I had to prove, look, I am working hard, guys. I'm doing all this and I'm doing it all by myself. But like, why was I doing that when I could have outsourced a lot sooner and gotten help, and that would have been way better for my mental health. I had the resources to do that. Sometimes it's also really nice to like soundboard off of someone, and also that allows you to grow. So I would say for your own mental health and to make the content creation sustainable, I would try to delegate and outsource some of the workload as much as possible, because what people don't see behind the scenes is it is a lot. You basically have like 6 job roles in one. You're scripting, you're producing, you're filming, you're editing, you're the strategist, you're the marketing, you go to events, you're networking. It's just constantly all the time on. And it's been normalized that we should just do it all by ourselves. But actually, if you were in a company, that would be like 6 different roles.
Yeah.
And now that I have an editor who helps and things like that, the more I like delegate, it doesn't completely remove you of everything. Your role just changes. So now you're more like managerial. So you learn a new skill set of being an employer, and that adds more legal accounting work to it. So it's more responsibility. But it made me realize how much I was doing when I saw like, whoa, his role is just editing. That's one part of the pie. And that's like his full-time thing. And I was doing that on top of everything else. It was very eye-opening of like, I should have done this so much sooner. And it allows you to expand and grow and gives you your life back a bit, I think. So if you're able to be at that point, I would start thinking about that a lot sooner than I did, I think.
Now, lastly, moving on to Why Not You. So those that do not know, I'm putting on an event that is for women who are wanting to learn about business, personal investing, or building a personal brand. And I know you kind of spoke about like when, for example, you had your issue with the accountant and being around the right people to get the right information and helping know how to navigate certain things. How important would you say, being around the right people, seeing people in positions you want to be in is important, not only when you're getting started, but even in the position you're in now? I'm sure you want to network and also help other people. So why is that important to you?
I think there's a lot of conversation now. There's a lot more language now that I just didn't have back then, so I didn't understand. But we talk a lot about like lack mindset and abundance mindset now. But I think, it's kind of been a thread in our conversation today of like when I was starting out and all I wanted was to just dream a bit bigger and be like, let's just try. I was met with a lot of resistance of like, well, that's not going to work. You got to think of the safe choice and things like that. And so I went online to find my people, my community that were more like, no, we support you and we can see this and we're rooting for you. And then when I was figuring out the business side of things, I went to the YouTube convention and they were like, oh, these are the right people to help you with this problem and this stuff. So it's more like you are as big as a room you're in sometimes. And sometimes you have to create that room. And for me, I had to create that when I was young by going on YouTube. But now by doing that, I am now in those rooms. And now I'm in rooms where if I say I have an idea, they're like, yeah, let's make it happen. Whereas 10 years ago, it was like, well, that's not going to happen. So that's the difference. And now I'm around people who, just in conversations, we'll talk about ideas and goals and actually making them happen. And it really does motivate me to go into those spaces and do more. It's such a big part of the transformation is mental. And a big thing that helps with that is the people you surround yourself with. It's so game-changing to be around people who support you, who see you. And that's why it's so incredible that you're making this event, because you're creating that physical space where they can go in and they won't have to justify themselves. They won't have to like feel like they have to prove themselves. They won't have to be in that space that I was in 10 years ago where I had to only rely on self-belief. Now they're going to go into a room full of like-minded people who all want to grow, and that energy is so contagious. And yeah, you can't, because it's not like a physical thing, right? But it's like, it's such a gift to be in that kind of environment where you're around people who support you. So I think it's really special that you're creating that space for people, because 10 years ago, I didn't have that. I had to make that. But it's so nice that now, it's nice to see 10 years later that there are now spaces like that for people, because it really does make a world of difference when you're around people who like support you and champion you and give you that space to allow you to grow and figure yourself out into your potential. Because there's a lot of growing pains, and it is awkward and it is cringe, but to have someone be like, yeah, I'm backing you, I'm going to support you, like that's like priceless.
And I think especially for women of colour and those that don't necessarily, let's say you're starting out and you don't come from a family or a friendship circle that talk about achieving more, or when you talk about your dreams or what you want to do is kind of met with, okay, you know, you're dreaming too big, or, you know, those things are not for us. And I think, like you said, a lot of it is in the mental, because when you're around those people and you're, let's say 18, you're thinking, oh, I want to start content, or I want to do this, and they see you and they're like, oh, okay, she lives in London, I'm in wherever, I can never do those things. But being able to be in a room and see people look like you talking about, this is how they done it, this is how you go about it, and seeing then friends that you can, people your age or whatever age or a couple steps ahead of you doing those things, and you can be like, oh, okay, they can do it, I can do it too. And that's why for me it was so important, because I was like, even starting my own business, I was like, okay, I can see people that look like me do those things, why not me? So yeah, I think it is such a important space. And yeah. Alrighty then, I don't know if that was a great conversation. I'm so glad to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, see you soon.